the national anthem comes on, gives you chills. Like you feel the whole aura of the game. You know, I tell people all the time about what a day like Sunday feels like at the 500 for us, and the feeling of it in the air just before the race and other big races in our sport, and it shares that same moment, in that sport. So I thought that was cool. That's by far the biggest sporting event I've ever went to besides one of ours. So it was cool to share some similar feelings.
You, as you know, obviously, from the point where it is, you've kind of been in the sport long enough. You've seen different guys, and somebody like Denny, you had an opportunity to kind of work with him, see him from close, see him from afar. What is it about him that keeps him relevant? I know the organization is a key part of it. I'm not going to discount that, but still got to do your job in some way. What do you see, and how we kind of see that role, how he's stay relevant through the years?
I think Denny's just incredibly talented. Yeah, I think he's one of the best in the field. I mean, in driving a race car. I worked around him for I don't know, 5 years. And, when I first started working with him, I didn't truly realize it just because I'd been around Kyle for so long, and I thought, man, Kyle's the guy. And he was, especially at that time, he was, right? He was winning and everything. And then I got around, Denny, and I'm like, man, this guy's really fast, and he was winning a lot, and I started to work with him more and more, and just his sheer ability in the car is extremely high. His talent that he had at the time, especially on short tracks, when I worked with him, it was hard to match. He ran a pretty different setup than us most of the time. His balance was quite a bit different than everybody else, but yeah, I mean, his talent, I always thought, the more and more I worked with him, realized how good he really was.
And how else do you see that? Because I don't know if maybe people see that as well. I mean, even though he has the wins, it's what I guess a little bit more detail. What do you see that he does or has done in the past that maybe the average fan may not be as attuned to?
I think you have to look at his adaptability. Okay. I think you look at him in the Gen 6 car, and you looked at what he was really good at, and it was specific places, right? Count on him to win Richmond, Martinsville, maybe a Homestead here and there. He always kind of won at the same places. And then, you look at the last few years, and you look at the places where he's won at, and it's been very different. And then we go to the next gen car, and you think, oh, well, he's going to struggle now. He raced all these years in the old car, and he's got his feel and his deal he wants to run. He's not going to be able to replicate that. Well, okay, all of a sudden he turned it on in that, right? He's winning again. And then you look at him on the road courses in Gen 6, and he had a struggle for a long time. Next gen car struggled off the bat on road courses. Then all of a sudden, well, now this guy's qualifying on the pole and racing up front. I think that's probably the easiest way from a 100-foot view to look at, how quick he can adapt and get better, and say, if you can give him something like, hey man, I think you need to work on this, and I've worked with his crew chief, Chris, right, and I know probably how he's working and trying to mold Denny a bit and giving him things to work on, and to see him go to work and all of a sudden just get better at them, that's not easy to do as a driver, right? Most guys, and a lot of the guys more from his generation and kind of right at a turning point of when I came in, kind of set in your ways, and it's hard sometimes to look at data and say, oh, I'm just going to go do that. That guy does it good. And Denny's very feel and very just drives the car to the tire and what he's doing. So for him to be able to just switch and adapt and get better, I think is really impressive.
Thank you.
Eric, you're back with Toyota. Can you describe what has changed since the first time you were with Toyota and now this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a lot. A lot of the same people in the same places, and I guess the only difference is with a different team working with them. And, right now, a smaller team, right? So we kind of came in with some different probably asks than what I had at JGR. You know, we need different resources and different things from them, especially to get started. You know, coming off having kind of a blank slate and no real data with TRD from the last few years. A lot of stuff we got to learn and figure out, and so building out simulation programs, tire programs, you know, all that stuff has been a lot of man hours and a lot of heavy lifting right now off the bat. But you know, Toyota's done a good job of helping us facilitate that, and that's kind of the stuff that, you know, we didn't have last time I was with them. We didn't have to work through any of that, so it's been kind of fun to see them, you know, put in the time for us to help us.
This is the second season of going through with the Legacy Group. What can we expect to see maybe differently with their philosophy than what they were able to do in the first year?
That's tough to say. I mean, you know, we've built out we've added a lot of people, and obviously made the manufacturer change, and that's we've done all the things we can do right now to make it better, but we need to go race. You know, we don't really know where we're gonna stack up, to be honest. You know, right now we just have to hit the track and see where we're at, and then kind of we can make a plan from there. You know, I tell, you know, in the shop, you want to set your expectations high, and we do have high expectations, but you know, I think Dave and I have talked a lot and said, man, you got to give us 6 months. You got to let us get racing, see where we get going on these mile and a halves, on short tracks, road courses, see where all these programs are at, and then we can start to kind of build and get them better. And that gives guys time to fill in new roles, you know, learn simulation. You know, these guys are trying to figure out a lot of stuff right now, and I commend them a lot on what they've been putting in the last month to try to get ready, but it's a lot of heavy lifting right now.
Did not having Jimmy around midway through last season for a good bit really affect the team?
No, not really. You know, I thought we did. I thought everybody did a good job. You know, honestly, our best runs were towards the end of the year. You know, we started running well in the playoffs and get things better. You know, we were able to keep going. We've got a good process in the shop with our guys. You know, Joey Cohen is our competition guy leading the way. You know, we had a good process in place, and we were able to kind of dig in and figure things out. So I thought we kept rolling pretty good.
Looking ahead this Sunday,
to you to kind of be a surprise this year, so that you could, you know, jump up, win a race, make the playoffs. When you hear that kind of expectations or whatever you want to call it, how does that, you know, what do you respond to that?
I mean, it makes you happy, right? You know, you want to be a guy that people look at to run well, whether it's you know, I mean, this year it would be fair to say it'd be a surprise, right? I think eventually you want to be the guy that's not a surprise to run well, right? You want to be just fast enough and strong enough year after year. But you know, the way things have went last couple of years, and with a huge change in the off season, yeah, I mean, to hop off first year hitting the ground running like that and having speed, I would say would be somewhat of a surprise. So I think we can do it, and I think we can get there, but it is going to take time. There's a lot of stuff these guys are working through right now, and it's a lot of work. So, but yeah, you know, we're all excited about it. I think the potential to go out and have really fast cars when we hit on it is high.
Have you ever called in a NASCAR hauler for a behavioral thing, like on the racetrack or anything like that?
One time, it was in Talladega, and it wasn't even with another competitor. I was in a wreck, like lap, it was early, lap 30 maybe. This was a long time ago.
Cup race?
It was a cup race. Yeah, Jamie McMurray had pulled down to pit from like the second lane, and I was not pitting, and hit him at a high rate of speed and knocked the whole front end off the car, wrecked a bunch of cars. And I was driving back around, just driving back to the pits, and evidently I had blown the oil cooler out, and I laid a lot of oil down. Pulled in the garage, and for some reason I had stayed around, like I hadn't left. I had hung around the track longer than you normally would. And someone called me and said, hey, you got to go to the NASCAR hauler. I said, okay, I'll head over there. And they said, no, you got to wait till after the race to go. Okay. So that ended up, if you look up the 2017 fall Talladega race, it was like 5.5 hours long. And I was out on about lap 30. But they had a lot of issues that day. And by the time I walked in the hauler, think the last one they wanted to talk to by that point was me. But they basically told me to not mess up their show anymore and lay oil on the track. So it was a memorable one.
Jared Haas with FrontStretch.com. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, check one of those 2 videos out that we have right beside you. Visit FrontStretch.com for more great content.